Have you ever considered the possibility that the last 4 decades have been less a life lived and more a life missed? It sounds harsh, but for many, it's the brutal truth. Wake up, work, pay bills, worry, rinse and repeat. They call it existence. But if the law of attraction truly works, why aren't you already living your dream life? The core issue? A deep-seated disbelief in the possibility of actually achieving your goals. An invisible, ever-present voice whispers, "This isn't for you. Settle. Forget those dreams." And tragically, many buy into that lie. But here's the game changer. If you can define what you want, I can show you the path. It might sound like a boast, but it's not. It's the fundamental nature of the universe. Whether it's a luxury car, financial freedom, a dream home, or the perfect relationship, the process for achieving any goal is identical. Everything operates according to precise laws, as unwavering as gravity. The law of attraction doesn't play favorites. It doesn't discriminate. It simply responds to your frequency. And most people miss the point. The problem isn't a lack of desire, it's a lack of focus. You say you want prosperity, yet you spend your days consumed by anxieties about debt. What signal are you sending? The universe doesn't understand words. It interprets vibrations. Worry broadcasts scarcity. Anxiety screams neediness. Doubt is a roadblock. The result? You attract more of the same. I remember when my finances were a disaster. Debt dwarfed my annual income. Each month I sank deeper, seemingly without escape. My biggest mistake? Obsessing over how I'd pay my bills. I woke up worried, spent the day worried, and slept worried. I had no clue that that was the problem. What you intensely and repeatedly focus on, you attract. I wasn't attracting solutions. I was attracting more bills, more debt, more problems. That's why so many people decades later seem to chase the same elusive goals. Ever caught yourself thinking, "I just want to breathe without worrying about money"? Even that seemingly innocent thought is already broadcasting scarcity. It's like trying to escape a maze while staring at the walls. You won't find the exit because you're fixated on the obstacles. Crucially, studies in behavioral economics reveal that over 70% of people prioritize avoiding losses over gaining more. This creates a defensive survival mindset, not a growth mindset. The key is to shift your focus. Want prosperity? Think abundance. Crave health. Visualize vitality. Yearning for better relationships? Focus on love and connection. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about refusing to let them dominate your mind. Think of a radio. Want classical music but stuck on a news station broadcasting negativity? You can complain all you want. The music won't play. Your mind works the same way. Consider people who've rewritten their lives by changing this mental frequency. Jim Carrey, for instance, wrote himself a check for $10 million when he was a struggling comedian, kept it, and read it daily. He wasn't focusing on his struggles, but on the desired outcome. Years later, he earned exactly that amount for a single film. What changed? His mental frequency. While many get trapped in "I can't," some dare to live in "I already am," "I already have," "I already deserve." Now reflect. How many times have you said you wanted to change your life, yet continued doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, having the same conversations? How often have you tried to solve a financial problem by solely focusing on cutting expenses, neglecting income generation? How often have you believed happiness would only arrive after solving your problems, instead of choosing happiness now to attract more reasons to be happy? The difference between success and failure boils down to this: believing it's possible and maintaining that belief with consistent thoughts, feelings, and actions. The law of attraction doesn't fail. What fails is how people use it. They ask for prosperity but vibrate scarcity. They want health but vibrate worry. They crave love but vibrate loneliness. The question is, what has been your dominant frequency in recent years? Because the answer explains your current reality. Everything you desire already exists, but not in the reality you currently perceive. Every goal, every dream, every accomplishment resides at a specific frequency. It's like a radio signal. Thousands of stations broadcast simultaneously, but you only hear the one you're tuned into. It's the same with your desires. If you're not hearing the music you want, it's not because it doesn't exist. It's because you're on the wrong station. Most people crave prosperity, yet immerse themselves in conversations about crisis, inflation, and unemployment. They claim to want freedom but spend hours complaining about a job they hate. They desire love but dwell on past disappointments. They want health but feed daily on fear and worry about illness. That's like trying to listen to jazz on a violent news station. No matter how much you fiddle with the dial, as long as you're on that frequency, you'll only receive more of the same. I learned this through a simple yet powerful analogy. Your cell phone. It has a unique number. If I call that number, regardless of whether you're in Brazil, Japan, or Argentina, your phone will ring. Why? Because both phones connect on the same frequency. Imagine the same applies between you and your desires. The money you want is on a frequency. The health you crave is on a frequency. The relationship you dream of is on a frequency. Whether you connect depends on your mind's attunement. This is what clicked when I started changing my focus. Before, my mind was perpetually locked onto the frequency of debt, fear, and scarcity. No matter how intensely I desired something better, I couldn't attract it because I was broadcasting the wrong signal. The transformation began when I filled my thoughts with images of abundance. I hadn't achieved any of it physically, but in my mind I started living as if it were already real. And gradually, this shift in frequency began attracting new opportunities, new connections, new ideas. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the law of attraction. It's not about intensely wishing for something and expecting it to fall from the sky. It's about aligning your mind to the point of feeling in harmony with what you desire. When you change your frequency, you attract people, circumstances, and resources that vibrate at the same wavelength. It's as if doors that were always closed suddenly begin to swing open. Consider Oprah Winfrey. She was born into poverty, endured unimaginable abuse and hardship. Yet, at a young age, she began visualizing and feeling within herself the life she wanted to live. No matter where she was, her mind was already on a different station, tuned into abundance, impact, and success. Her story is undeniable proof that when you change your frequency, you change everything. And this isn't just philosophy. Science shows our brains function like antennas. Neuroscience research reveals that when we cultivate positive thoughts and mental images of abundance, brain areas responsible for motivation and creativity activate, releasing dopamine and strengthening connections that make us more adept at identifying opportunities in the real world. In other words, when you change your internal tuning, you start seeing paths that were previously hidden. Now honestly reflect, what station have you been living on for the past few years? When someone asks how you are, do your words reinforce abundance or scarcity? Do you talk more about achievements or problems? Because everything you repeat in words, thoughts, and emotions becomes the frequency you transmit to the universe, and the universe, obedient as a mirror, simply returns the same energy it receives. The magic happens when you consciously decide to change the station, when you refuse to stay stuck on the station of lack and begin adjusting your mind's dial to the station of prosperity, freedom, health, and love. That's when the things you seek stop seeming distant and start drawing closer, like iron to a magnet. Because it's not desire that attracts, it's frequency. Paradigms. Those 4 letters represent a silent prison. I spent half my life unaware I was imprisoned by paradigms, ideas ingrained since childhood that dictate 95% of our actions. Consider this. When you were born, everything that entered your mind was accepted unquestioningly. A baby has no filter. It receives sound, smell, image, and idea, and it all goes straight to the subconscious. Your self-image, that little voice that says this is for me or this isn't for me, was built there. And from there, the paradigm governing your behavior was formed. This isn't fiction. It's how we function. We have a divided mind, with 2 parts operating in vastly different ways. The conscious mind thinks, reasons, decides. The subconscious mind accepts everything. It doesn't discriminate between what's real and what's imagined. You can imagine something with such detail that your subconscious accepts it as truth. That's an advantage and a trap. Most people feed their subconscious with themes of scarcity. It's not possible. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. These ideas crystallize and become paradigms. Then when you try to change your life with rational reasoning, you hit the paradigm wall. Ever noticed why so many people know what to do but don't do it? Superior knowledge and inferior results. That discrepancy exists because the paradigm still calls the shots. I clearly remember the day someone showed me this mechanism. I was lost, directionless, with deplorable results, when a man sat down with me and drew a simple diagram. The mind as two circles, conscious on top, subconscious below, and the body as an instrument in the center. He said, "Your subconscious accepts everything. It doesn't discern between what you imagine and what you've experienced. If you don't direct the content, you'll keep repeating old responses to new problems." I felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at realizing how many times I'd sabotaged myself unknowingly. Relief at finally understanding it wasn't chronic incompetence, it was programming. The feeling was revelatory. For the first time, I didn't feel defeated by the world. I felt I could reprogram my own system. That was an emotional turning point, shifting from resigned submission to a desire to act, a spark of hope that burned for a week in my chest. To break this pattern, you must first identify the paradigm. Ask yourself, what phrases do I automatically repeat about money, relationships, work? How many times have you used "it's always been this way" as an excuse? What childhood memories dictate your recipe for success or failure? It's useless to have a goal if your internal programming says the opposite. The conscious mind can set goals, but the subconscious will maintain automatic behavior until it's rewritten. Now, how to change this? And I want to be specific, because abstraction doesn't transform lives. First, control what enters. If your mind is a house, you decide who comes through the door. Reduce negative news consumption, talk less about limitations, adapt your environment to reflect your desired future, images, books, people who already live at your desired frequency. Second, use conscious repetition. Write down the new thought and expose your subconscious to it daily. Take a card and clearly write, "I create X, money, health, relationship, in this way by this date." Read it aloud, morning and night. Third, visualize with detail. Not a vague thought, but a complete scene. Where you are, who's beside you, smells, sensations. Remember, the subconscious doesn't differentiate between the imagined and the real. Fourth, act as if. Change small routines that prove to your subconscious that you're already in the new reality. Clothes, schedules, activities that correspond to the new you. Fifth, seek role models. Align yourself with mentors, books, and environments that already possess the paradigm you desire. I myself took techniques and models from people who already knew how to operate this law. That's how I learned. Changing a paradigm requires patience and method. Neuroscience shows that repetition forms neural pathways. This is called neuroplasticity. Repeated thoughts reinforce synapses. Repeated imaginations shape circuits. In other words, the practice is simple and has support. What's lacking is persistence. Many give up the moment the old automatic response tries to pull them back. That's why it's essential to have support strategies. A morning habit that reinforces the new, an accountability partner, an environment that doesn't feed the old story. I propose a practical exercise to begin the change. Identify a single limiting paradigm. For example, money is for others, not for me. Write down when and from whom you think you learned this. Then, write the opposite affirmation in the first person and present tense. I attract prosperity with my ideas and actions. Read this affirmation 20 times when you wake up and 20 times before bed for 7 days. Visualize for 5 minutes at midday as if you already have this prosperity, the smell, the touch, the sensation in your body. Simultaneously, change a small action that confirms this new belief. Open a savings account, call a potential client, enroll in a course. Notice, if you sustain this practice, the subconscious will begin to accept the new truth, and the results will begin to align. You might argue, "I've tried and it didn't work." Then I ask, how many times did you try without method, without repetition, without changing your environment? How many times did you stop at the first sign of discomfort? Breaking paradigms is uncomfortable. It's shaking foundations. But the reward is creating a life you truly direct. Paradigms aren't condemnations. They're programs you can rewrite. The initial step is humble and powerful, recognizing that a paradigm is at play and deciding for the first time to be the author of your own mind. Most people live as extras in their own movie. They wake up, follow a routine someone else defined for them, work jobs they didn't truly choose, follow societal norms, and at the end of the day, merely survive. It's as if their lives are always happening behind the scenes, with the lead role played by someone else. Notice how common this is? People complaining about lack of time, lack of choice, lack of opportunity, but continuing to repeat the same script, never realizing they're the ones who should be directing the show. The truth is, when you don't take the director's chair of your own story, you automatically hand control to others. It's the boss who decides how much you're worth per month. It's family dictating what you should or shouldn't do. It's fear setting the limits of your courage. And the most intriguing part is that many believe this is normal, that being trapped in patterns and limitations is everyone's destiny. But it's not. The difference between living as an extra and living as the protagonist is understanding that life isn't something that happens to you, but something that happens from you. I remember a period when I also let circumstances dictate my life. I worked as a firefighter, seemingly a stable life, fixed salary, predictable routine, some security. But inwardly, I felt like an extra in a massive film, always following orders, always in the background, never the star of my own story. It was frustrating because deep down I knew there was more, but I had no idea how to access it. The change began when I realized I was trying to write a grand life with someone else's pen. That's when I decided, either I take the lead role, or I'll spend my life applauding others. That decision transformed my apathy into courage. I moved from resignation to a vibrant sense of possibility. It's fascinating how some public figures illustrate this contrast. Nikola Tesla, for example, refused to be an extra. He imagined his inventions so vividly in his mind that he could mentally test them before physically building them. He didn't wait for the world's permission. He wrote and directed his own film. What many called madness was, in fact, creative protagonism in its purest form. Those who refuse to take this role inevitably end up stuck in supporting roles, living stories written by others, never experiencing the power of creating their own narrative. The law of attraction only responds to protagonists. When you assume the director's role, you start writing scenes, dialogues, and endings that reflect what you desire. But if you remain an extra, your energy is diffuse, your frequency is passive, and you attract only scraps of what you could have. It's like expecting the universe to give you the grand prize when you haven't even entered the game. And this reflects in all areas. At work, when you accept any salary instead of advocating for yourself. In relationships, when you settle for crumbs of attention. In health, when you wait to get sick before taking care of yourself. Science also confirms this difference. Psychology studies show that people who see themselves as protagonists of their lives have higher well-being, greater resilience, and even greater longevity. They develop what's called an internal locus of control, the perception that their choices have a direct impact on outcomes. Those who see themselves as extras, believing everything depends on luck, the government, or others, tend to experience more anxiety, more stress, and less personal fulfillment. This isn't coincidence, it's a direct reflection of the mental frequency they choose to maintain. Now, think about you. Ever feel like you're playing a supporting role in your own life? Like you're stuck on autopilot, following a well-worn path instead of blazing your own trail? We've all been there, silently accepting a script that wasn't written for us. But here's the game changer. The moment you grab the reins, the whole narrative shifts. Suddenly, you're the star, and the audience is captivated. Becoming the protagonist doesn't erase the challenges, it integrates them into your story, turning obstacles into plot points, not roadblocks. You call the shots, the dialogue, the setting, the pacing. The question is, how long will you remain a bystander in a movie you were born to star in? Let's talk about debt. Trying to get rid of debt is a fundamental flaw in thinking. Your subconscious doesn't understand negation. It only sees the image you project. Saying, "I want to get rid of debt," plants the image of debt firmly in your mind, attracting more financial hardship. The law of attraction responds not to intentions, but to the vivid pictures and emotions you nurture. If you spend your days obsessing over bills, deadlines, and dwindling bank balances, what do you expect to attract? More of the same. That's exactly what happened to me. My debt was astronomical, more than my annual income. I was lost in endless spreadsheets, desperately trying to balance the impossible. The harder I focused on the debt, the more it seemed to grow. Then a mentor gave me some life-altering advice. If your goal is to get rid of debt, you'll never succeed. Change your goal to creating wealth. It sounded crazy at first. How could someone drowning in debt even fathom prosperity? But shifting my focus changed everything. I wrote, "I desire $25,000 on a card," and read it daily. For the first time, my mind envisioned abundance, not scarcity, and incredible things started to happen. Someone mentioned a floor cleaning job, something I would have dismissed before. But with my mind focused on wealth creation, I saw it as an opportunity, a golden ticket. That became my first venture, catapulting me out of debt and into prosperity. The problem wasn't a lack of opportunities, it was the frequency I was tuned to. Science backs this up. Psychological research shows our brains are selective filters, prioritizing what we deem important. It's called the reticular activating system. Buy a red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. They were always there, but your mind now identifies them. It's the same with money. Focus on debt, and you only see obstacles. Focus on wealth, and you see paths, solutions, and opportunities that were always present, but previously unseen. It's like changing the lens through which you view the world. So many people spend their lives paying bills, believing a raise or cutting back will be enough. Yet they find themselves in debt again, because their focus remains on escaping debt, not on generating wealth. The law of attraction doesn't differentiate between intention and image. You can wish for financial freedom, but if your mind is constantly filled with overdue bills, that's what you'll attract. People with a wealthy mindset seem to effortlessly multiply results. They don't dwell on scarcity, they focus on creation, expansion, and growth. Even facing debt or financial challenges, they don't get stuck. They immediately shift their attention to generating more resources, increasing their value to the world, and creating new income streams. How often have you said, "I just want to pay my bills," or "I just want to break even"? That's asking the universe to keep you in scarcity. But shift the question to, "How can I generate more value and increase my income?" And your mind will seek different answers. Don't fight the debt. That keeps it alive in your mind. Build a new mental image: abundance, continuous flow, prosperity. Make it so vivid, clear, and repeated that it becomes automatic. When your frequency changes, your results change. It's inevitable. What are you feeding your mind? The image of mounting bills, or the image of flowing prosperity? The law of attraction is unwavering. It faithfully reflects the image you choose to nurture daily. Your daily frequency dictates your results. Ready to take the next step? The next video is waiting. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.